Good evening. I'd like to call the City Council meeting of Monday, April 4th, 2022 to order. If I can have our City Clerk please call the roll.
Mayor Flores.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Tharp.
Present.
Councilmember Noble.
Here.
Councilmember Dugo.
Here.
Councilmember Diaz.
Present.
Councilmember Bousquet.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
All rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to agenda approval.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Is that the consent?
All right, so I have a motion made by Councilmember Bousquet, second by Councilmember Noble. Comments or questions? Councilmember Dugo.
Yes, I would like to add an item to the regular agenda in regard to redistricting. Sorry.
Okay. So is that a substitute motion?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to add another item to the regular.
All right, so I have substitute motion made by Councilmember Dugo, second by Councilmember Noble. Comments or questions from the rest of the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Where are you going to put it?
All opposed?
Aye.
All right, so that carries, I believe, 4-1. You guys got to speak into the mic so I can try to get a consensus.
Can I ask a question about that? Is that to change a decision that we made? Is it a discussion item?
I would think that it falls under discussion item, correct?
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Then I withdraw my opposition.
All right, so then that motion carries 5-0. And we're going to put that redistricting under discussion item. All right, at this time, comments from the public for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, moving on to our special business. Tonight we have a proclamation for Autism Awareness Month. If I can, is the representative here? Is Lisa here? I don't see Lisa. All right, I love this organization anyway, so I'm going to ask our city clerk to read the proclamation into the record.
Proclamation of the City Council of the City of Green Acres, Florida, proclaiming April 2022 as National Autism Awareness Month. The City of Green Acres urge all employees and residents to participate in National Autism Awareness Month activities in order to become better educated about autism and create a better community for individuals with autism. Thank you.
And as I mentioned, unfortunately, Lisa, who's the executive director, is not here tonight. She might soon be trying to make it. But this is an organization that, and by the way, when I say this organization, it's loves serving autism. They do tennis for kids with who are on the spectrum, and here at Green Acres, we host them on our Samuel Ferrari community park on Saturday mornings. And if you drive by around, I think it's 9 o'clock, Andrea? Mm-hmm. Around 9 o'clock, you'll see them out there. And it's a large group. They continue to grow. A lot of volunteers that go out there and help out with the kids, the children, and a lot of parents are out there too. So it's an organization that continues to grow. They actually take the kids out to New York for the New York Open. So it's they do great work in the community. It's not just here in Green Acres. They have various sites throughout Palm Beach County. So I'm glad that we host them once a week and that the kids have an outlet to come out and exercise. So on behalf of Love Serving Autism, I take this and I make sure that they receive this proclamation because I know it means a lot to them. Now, for one of my favorite parts of our meetings every year, we get to recognize some special volunteers here in our city. Our second special business, we have a presentation for the 2021 Presidential Volunteer Service Awards, and tonight we have Benjamin Dexter, our Youth Program Supervisor, and Michelle Thompson, who are going to be doing the presentation. So come on up.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor. Again, my name is Benjamin Jerome Dexter II. I'm Youth Program Supervisor at the City of Green Acres, a Youth Programs Department. Just like to say a few words before we hand out the awards.
Sure.
It's always amazing to see how much, the kids like to give back to our community. We always like to think that we do our job very efficiently, but our job isn't as efficient if they weren't here. They buy into everything that we do. They're a major part of the program. They're a major part of how we function when it comes to different events and whatnot as well, and we appreciate their service. So what we're going to do is we're going to call them up. We're going to shake the hand, and then we're probably going to ask if we can just save the hand claps until after we get through the names, if that's okay. All right, I'm just going to ask Ms. Sasha to come up and help me, as she has it very organized. Thank you. It's Ms. Sasha, Youth Program Specialist. So you can stand right here and hand it to the mayor as we call him up. All right, so first up we have Melissa Benavides, teens, and she had a total of 64 hours. You can come up, please.
Woo.
Thank you.
Big old round of applause for Melissa.
Good job. Yeah, you can go stand right there.
Holding the claps.
So once you get it, you can stand right up here, please. Thank you. You have Corey Brown with a total of 410 hours.
Oh, my God.
I used to coach against him. He was like this tall, draining threes. I'm proud of you.
Can we have Emily Chanea? She has a total of 107 hours. We have Valerie Chanea. She has a total of 97 hours. Okay. Can I get Zaria Clemens to come up with a total of 188 hours?
Wow.
Okay, here we go. Can I have Ashley Flores to come up, please, with a total of 223 hours? Can I get Emilio Garcia to come up with a total of 396 hours? Can I get Callista Garcia to come up with a total of 159 hours? Can I get Christopher Gomajo to come up with a total of 55 hours? Can I get Ricardo Hall to come up with a total of 389 hours? Can I get Daisy Hernandez to come up with a total of 279 hours? Can I get Jose Martinez to come up with a total of 170 hours? And can I get Jonathan Mann to come up with a total of 120 hours? Can I get Amelia Mohammed to come up with a total of 578 hours? Can I get Ashley Resendez to come up with a total of 270 hours? Can I get get Samuel Rojas to come up with a total of 389 hours. Can I get Pearl Rosales to come up with a total of 305 hours? And can I get Gabby Santos to come up with a total of 361 hours? We did have others who are not here and present. If you guys can go ahead and give them a round of applause too, as they did help us out as well. And may I present to you our 2021 Presidential Service Volunteer Award awardees. There you go.
Maybe a couple rows down.
Sorry.
Ladies coming in?
Sorry.
This way.
Yeah, we have one more coming. I'm so sorry. Here she comes. We have Jennifer Cuellar with a total of 367 hours.
All right, congratulations, everyone. So I get the privilege, for the record, Michelle Thompson, Community and Recreation Services Director. I get the privilege of introducing our adult volunteers. And just like all of our kids and teens, we cannot do what we do without the hard work, the dedication, and the sweat that our volunteers put into our events, to our Little Free Libraries, to various food distributions and everything else that the city is doing. So I'm proud to give you a quick definition. The bronze category is 100 to 249 hours. The silver category is 250 to 499, and then the gold category is 500 plus hours a year. So it is my privilege to first introduce you to Palmyra Torres. She is a recipient of a silver award for 261 hours. Can you come up? And then Doreen Lawrence is also a recipient of a silver award for 278 hours. And Cindy Jones, who's coming up, is also a recipient of a silver award for 305 hours. And then this evening, we have a brand-new award that we've never awarded in the last 20 years that I've been here, which is a family award, and it's awarded to the Glasser family, Robert and Carol Glasser. And unfortunately, they weren't able to make it tonight. Bob had a medical emergency, and he wants to thank Fire Rescue for all the assistance you gave him last week, so thank you for that. But they get the Gold Award, and it's 500 hours plus. They did 513 hours, and they research the books, they order all of the books, they pack the books, they get them delivered to the center, to community, youth programs, all of the different supplies and camp items and materials that the kids need to have fun and to do their activities. And then they also were a gracious donor for our Story Walk unit. We have two. One is at Community Park and one is at Freedom Park. So they were a great funder of that, and they provide tons of hours and a lot of donations. So we're really, really thankful. So we wanted to give this to them publicly, even though they're not here. For the picture? Okay.
Two rows. So, well, we don't really have any short. I mean, yes, please, what are you guys drinking? More water over here. All right, come on. A couple of you guys in the front. If we need to, we'll do a little squat. All right. Panorama.
Some of them sit at the table.
We can. Yep. Do you want to stand for the picture? You want to stand for the picture? Yeah. All right, ladies, we're gonna have to come in. We're gonna have to come in a little more. Try coming in if we need 3 rows. Come on over. Come on over. Inside. We can squat a little bit.
Why doesn't Palmyra sit? Cindy, why don't you, should Palmyra sit?
So, come on. We're gonna need 3 rows. Ladies, please. We can squat on the front. And then, ladies over here, and Mayor, we're gonna need probably to the end of the table. So we only need the width of the table here. Yep. We gave them the width of the table. Yeah. Cindy and Pam, you guys can sit in these chairs.
Go ahead, sit in these chairs.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Why isn't the mayor smiling? Okay, everybody close your eyes on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect, thank you.
Who stole my agenda?
Maybe Michelle. Oh, you got it? Okay.
So I'd like to, we have some special guests that just joined us. So I want to first recognize our school board member, Alexandra Ayala. Thank you for joining us. She represents Green Acres District 1? 2, District 2. So, thank you. And then we also, we have Lisa, who joined us from Love Serving Autism. We already recognized and we read the proclamation into the record, but I would love for you to come up here, tell us your mission and what you do.
Get your picture taken.
No worries, no worries. Good, how are you? This is yours. Let's take a picture.
Oh, we got one.
Speaking to the microphone here. Okay. So my name is Lisa Pugliese-Lacroix. I'm the founder of Love Serving Autism, and this is Nicole Erickson, and she is our Love Serving Autism tennis coach for the City of Green Acres. And on behalf of our organization, we would like to thank the City of Green Acres for your support of adaptive programming for children and adults with special needs, and really advocating for individuals who are on the spectrum. Maybe they have developmental challenges and delays. And our program runs every Saturday with Coach Nicole. And if anyone's interested in volunteering, I see a lot of wonderful student volunteers here. If you want more community service hours, you're welcome to come out and meet some of the children. And just thank you for your community and for everything you do for us. Thank you.
All right, moving on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second?
All right, I have a motion made by Deputy Mayor Thorpe, second by Councilmember Diaz. All in favor?
Aye.
Did I get everyone? Let me do that again. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to our regular agenda. Our first item tonight is public hearing for ordinance 2022-04, second reading. If I can have our city clerk please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-04, second reading, amending Chapter 16, Article 1, and General Section 16-1, Article 4, Supplemental District Regulations, Division 2, Area and Height Limitations, Section 16-630, to address the size of accessory structures on large lots and provide regulations for mechanical and architectural equipment placed in the setback, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in code, and providing for an effective date.
All right, and tonight we have, let me get the title right. We have Kara Irwin Ferris, Director of Development and Neighborhood Services, presenting.
Thank you. Good evening. This is second reading of ordinance 2022-04 for ZTA 2202, and this is a change to section 16630, referred to as yards. We went into depth about the proposed changes at the last meeting for first reading. Nothing has changed between first and second reading. There were some questions about how other people handle accessory structures, and there are a wide variations, specifically in Palm Beach County. These variations start in location. Some areas match us, which is a 5-foot setback from your rear and your side property lines, and some require the sheds to be placed up against the single-family structure. So there are different variations throughout Palm Beach County. We also have some other municipalities that I looked up that had larger lots. They did refer to sheds as a specific type of accessory unit, but then they also had additional accessory units, which we encompass with these accessory structures, which include garages or barns for those equestrian communities or communities that have larger lots. So we feel like we're being consistent with what's being done in the rest of Palm Beach County. So basically, if you're looking at the lot as a square, an accessory structure for a single-family lot in your original section, which is usually a 50 by 130 lot, 6,500 square feet, it's about 3% of the lot. When you look at 600 square feet, which is for houses that don't have a garage, they're allowed to do that large, it's like 3 to 9% of the lot. So what we're proposing with the proposed change up to 1,200 square feet is right in between there, about 5% of the lot if it's a half-acre lot, and that percentage goes down as the lot gets bigger. So we feel we're being consistent with what's existing on other properties. So we are recommending approval of the change. These were a couple of our larger lots. These are all half-acre lots, some of which have put up some of these structures, and they've utilized, whether they're connected pathways or they're connected to the house, they've been allowed to do it under lot coverage as long as it's connected to the house. We do recommend approval of ZTA 2204 to allow the increase, and this is only for our residential low or our agriculture or residential estate lots. So mainly you're looking at the lots on the south end of Sherwood, where it goes into the larger lots, Piney Court and other properties back there. Those are our larger lots. And then we have a couple lots here or there that were annexed in from unincorporated Palm Beach County. But a majority of the lots that have been approved and processed through our development won't be affected by this because they're in the residential low 3, the RM2 or RM1, and RH. So this is really just for larger lots, a half acre or larger.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the council? All right, seeing no questions, I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-04. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, public hearing is now closed.
Motion to approve 2022-04.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Dugal, second by Councilmember Bousquet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to public hearing for ordinance 2022-05. 2022-05, second reading. If I can have our city clerk please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-05, second reading, amending Green Acres Code of Ordinance at Chapter 16, zoning regulations, Article 2, administration, Section 33, public hearings, to include a development application approval and notice requirement chart, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in code, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. And we have our zoning administrator, Karen Gardner-Young, presenting.
Good evening, everyone. As was stated, this is second reading of the zoning text amendment. The purpose of this amendment is to approve a notice requirement and approval chart. The intent is to make it easier and more user-friendly. Since first reading, there were no changes requested. I'm more than happy to make a presentation. I will leave that up to the council. I'm ready to do so, or if you have any other questions, no changes were made from first reading to tonight, and it was recommended on first reading 5-0.
Are there any comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-05, second reading. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, public hearing is now closed.
Move approval of ordinance 2022/05 on second reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Diaz, second by Deputy Mayor Tharp. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 5-0.
Mayor, I just want to make sure, I didn't say before, that the record is included, the files and everything included as part of the record for this matter.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, moving on to public hearing for ordinance 2022-06, second reading. If I can have our city clerk please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-06, second reading, amending Chapter 7, Health, Sanitation, and Nuisance, Article 3, Noise, in General, Section 7-56, to reduce construction hours permitted, permit the city manager the right to approve noise outside the permitted hours, create new sanitation operation hours, and create new noise limitations on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment, and landscaping and yard maintenance power tools, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in code, and providing for an effective date.
And once again, we have Karen Gardner-Young presenting.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This is second reading of the noise ordinance. I am going to make a shortened presentation because there were some questions that did come up from the first presentation. So there are 4 items that I'm seeking amendments to. One is to modify machinery and construction activities. Second is to add commercial sanitation operations. Third is to add heating, ventilation, and air conditioning regulations. And the last one is to add landscaping and yard maintenance, power tools, or motorized equipment. At our last meeting, there was a question regarding what happens if somebody wants to work over the weekend. So we really took a look what was out there and was sympathetic with what the comments were stated. So we are proposing an amendment from first reading, and that amendment would allow property owners to perform home repair or maintenance between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Sunday. So it doesn't change the holiday. We still like the holiday to be free. We feel the holiday really should be left for you to spend time with your family, but we understand that you might be, as the mayor said, a weekend warrior, and so you might need the Saturday and Sunday in order to complete your project. So we're making it also very specific to the property owner. So we're not asking that contractors are out there, but if you want to paint your house or you want to do something individually to your own premises, we feel that it is appropriate to allow you to do it during the hours of 9 and 6. We also took a look on construction hours. I went to take a look and see who on holidays. Again, you can take a look. It's a split. There are some jurisdictions that close completely on holidays, or they restrict it on holidays. Others are silent, which typically means that you would be permitted to go ahead and have activity on those holidays. If you look at it, you can kind of see the smaller cities are the ones that tend to not have activities on the holidays, while the larger ones tend to have it. I feel because there is a mix, it is appropriate, I think, that Green Acres does restrict it during the holidays. Obviously, the final decision is of the council sitting tonight. We also took a look, there was a question regarding the 250 feet of the residential use. Again, we were proposing, presently, there's no restrictions on commercial, we're not talking residential, commercial sanitation operations. We were proposing to restrict it between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., and the operations had to be within 250 of a residential use. So I wanted to give you an idea. The wingspan of a 747 is about 225 feet. The suggestion at one time was maybe go to 500 feet, which is about 1.5 football fields. Just wanted to give you a feel. I know it's hard, but wanted to kind of give you an idea. On the right side, you see something that's 36 feet, but if you look number B, it's 200 feet. So it kind of gives you an idea of the space we're talking about. On the left side, it also gives you the incident location. It's giving you 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet, and then 500 feet. After review of it, we're still recommending we stay with the 250 feet, but I did want to give you a perception. It's always hard when you're looking at things and not have a picture of what it really entails. So I wanted to give you the option to have the opportunity to look at what it might be if you wanted to go more than the 250 feet. The next question that came up is how we're going to enforce this noise ordinance. And I did confer with Chief, I want to call him Police Chief, Moore. It's joint. It's by the code officers as well as by the Sheriff's Office. Both will respond to a complaint. Talking with the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, most complaints that they've ever had on noise have been resolved when they showed up. In the time that Tris has been here, he's indicated that twice was the only time he had to go beyond it. He's been here, I think, over 5 years. So he really doesn't think it's going to be a problem that if something happens when a code officer is not on duty, the Sheriff's Office will go out. They believe they can resolve it. The code enforcement officers will be trained on how to use a sound meter if it's necessary, and we will, if a complaint is necessary, it will be brought to the special magistrate, and then she or he would have the opportunity to impose a possible fine if desired. So I wanted you to understand the process of what we're recommending. So code officer or sheriff's officer, if one or the other determines that it should go beyond just talking to them, it goes to the special magistrate for action. We are still recommending the approval of this item. At your March 21st meeting, you did approve on first reading, but we took to heart what was heard here, and we are recommending approval of ZTA 2022-02 through adoption of ordinance 2022-06, with the one change that we're recommending to allow the property owners to maintain and repair their houses on Sunday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I ask that all our records be included as part of the record. We have received no further communication or correspondence regarding this matter since first reading. I'm available to answer any questions, comments, or to further explain if necessary. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any comments or questions from the council? Councilmember Noble and then Dugo.
Just asking a question related to your presentation the last time. Do I recall where there was a comment about not doing any repairs on federal holidays? Was that mentioned in your presentation?
That is the recommendation of the ordinance that is before you today.
And that is included?
That is included. It has not, the staff is not recommending any change to that. They're recommending to continue.
In other words, you cannot repair your house on a federal holiday?
That is correct.
Doesn't that seem a little unusual?
Actually not. Like I said, we went and we did a survey of other jurisdictions. Many of them don't allow it.
Can you go back a few slides?
Yeah, sure.
She just went over it, Councilmember Noble. Right here. Anything else?
No, nothing.
Councilmember Dugo.
I have a question, and this is regarding contractors, and I'm assuming that the city would have an exception that a contractor could reach out to the code building department. Let's say a roofer's putting on roofs. We get a warning, in 5 days a hurricane's coming. Would there be a phone call that they could call and make an exception? We need to finish this?
Yeah, the exception is they could actually petition the city manager if necessary, if it requires, because there are things like
sometimes
sewer leak that you might have something, a generator that needs to continue, so absolutely.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, I guess I'd like to give my 2 cents and get feedback from the council. But I still have a hard time restricting people on their holiday from doing work on their home if they so choose to. I'm not saying contractors. Contractors, I understand, have them come back on another day, but if it's a holiday and they want to take and have a long project, they want to get completed and they plan accordingly,
You need the third day.
I don't want to penalize somebody. If it's noise, it's just another day that they're going to have to wait for noise. You know what I mean? But I'm still restricting that individual from being able to complete the work.
So we have to make a distinction again, and point well taken, Mayor, that it's the noise that we're restricting.
Right.
It's not the activity. So take an example. If you were to paint your house, would you generate enough noise that would necessarily restrict you from being able to do that? Probably not.
I understand that. What I'm saying is, if you're removing tile, which is kind of what I'm thinking, and you have a jackhammer, small, whatever, that's going to create some noise. And if somebody wants to do that, they want to do a demo, I don't know. I have a hard time restricting a homeowner from being able to work. So I don't know. I guess I'm asking for input from the council, and if I'm the only one, then let's have silent holidays. Any other comments or questions from the council?
I do.
All right, Councilmember Dugo, Councilmember Noble, and Deputy Mayor Tharp.
I agree. Working people may need that third day. I think that might be probably the only thing that I would think would need to be amended on this. That's my opinion.
Homeowners.
Homeowners,
Right.
absolutely, not contractors, unless it's an emergency roof situation where the city manager, but no, I agree.
Councilmember Noble.
Well, that was my original point, that's why I brought it up before. I too think it's a little unusual to have that restriction, so I would say that if we could make a motion to exclude that portion of it, I would like to make that motion.
All right, let me listen to Deputy Mayor Tharp.
No, I agree. I mean, as most of us are working Monday through Friday, and you need that 3-day weekend, I don't think I could, I think we need to not have it restricted during the holidays.
For
Homeowners, correct.
Councilmember Diaz?
Yes, I too agree with that, and I'm looking at it from the holiday perspective of, we hear fireworks on 4th of July, we hear music on other holidays. That hopefully would drown out some construction noise of a property owner just trying to get their project done.
And what I'm saying is, use the same hours as Sunday, so by 6 p.m., I think you have plenty of time to
wrap it up,
to get it done.
So if that is the desire,
But that's my recommendation. I'm hoping that a council member will make a motion here.
let me provide you suggested language. Does someone like to make a motion? So what we can say is, work is prohibited on Sundays and federal holidays, except property owners are permitted to perform home repairs and maintenance on Sundays and federal holidays between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m.
So moved. Don't ask me to repeat all of that.
That's why I read it.
And I'll second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Dugo, second by Councilmember Diaz. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Did we open that to the public?
We didn't do the...
Oh, this is public hearing? Oh, my apologies, so let me go back before I entertain that motion. I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-06. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Benjamin Wade, 3550 South 57th Avenue, Green Acres. I'd like to add something that, are these building things that you're talking about making noise, are they permitted?
Not everything requires a permit, like to paint a house wouldn't require a permit, but if it did require something, would be a permit. One of the reasons that we were limiting it is because, again, limited staff on duty, and that is the time you will have unlicensed contractors or people doing work without permits. So we're trying to look in the best interest of the residents to make sure we can cover that type of situation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben, I appreciate that. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do I now have a motion?
Yes.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Dugo, second by?
Yeah, second.
Second by Councilmember Bousquet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to item 9, public hearing for ordinance 2022-08, second reading. If I can have our city clerk please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-08, second reading, amending Chapter 11, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Article 5, Placement of Communication Facilities and Public Rights-of-Way, Section 11-101, Placement of Maintenance of a Communication Facility and Public Rights-of-Way to address the requirement for co-location opportunities on micro-tower infrastructures within the city right-of-way, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in code, and providing for an effective date.
All right, and once again, we have Director of Development and Neighborhood Services, Kara Irwin Ferris, presenting.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a minor amendment to Chapter 11, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, specific to the micro towers that go in the right-of-way. This is second reading of Ordinance 2022-08, and this is also adoption of that ordinance. This is the language that's been added into placement of communication facilities in the public right-of-way. The intent is during the permit review process, if there is a consideration from any member of the Development Review Committee to have a co-location opportunity on a tower, this can depend on location or size, or and it can be different types of equipment. We have provided for that dedication and that process within the existing code. Right now, we have submittals for applications. They go through the permit review, mostly through zoning, but in these opportunities for the micro towers, we're also going to take them to a DRC meeting and see if there's any input or any requirements or desire for co-location from city staff. Staff does recommend approval on second reading of ordinance 2022-08.
Are there comments or questions from the council? I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-08. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. All right, public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 2022-08 on second reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Deputy Mayor Tharp, second by Councilmember Dugo. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 5-0. Moving on to ordinance 2022-10. First reading, if I can have the city clerk please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-10, first reading, repealing Chapter 2, Administration, Article, Boards, Committees, Commission, Division 2, Code Enforcement, adopting a new Article 8, Code Compliance, providing for severability, preservation, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
And once again, we have Kara Irwin Ferris presenting.
Good evening. This is first reading of ordinance 2022-10. And we're going through some proposed changes in regards to code enforcement compliance process. If you remember, on September 22nd, 2021, the city attorney, Christy Gatto, made a presentation to you in regards to code compliance. And part of it kind of outlined some of the issues in our code that needed to be addressed and updated. And then the other part was at a request from council members to discuss putting a maximum or a cap on the reduction of liens for parcels that have been brought into compliance. And the suggestion from council was a 10% cap, and that's the minimum reduction that can happen for a single-family home, a commercial business, whether you're homesteaded or not homesteaded in the single-family home. So I'm going to go through some of these provisions that are, a lot of them are just changes, taking a code section from one location and putting in another where it's more appropriate, and then some actual changes to the code that will streamline our process and make things easier and better to work with as far as the system goes. So first, in the proposed changes, the draft ordinance proposes to delete the entire code compliance provision from its current location. It's under city boards, and create a new article in Chapter 2 solely for code compliance. Second, the draft ordinance sets forth some basic provisions and definitions. That's in Division 1. It does a typical process, which mirrors Chapter 162, Part 1 Florida statutes. That's in Division 2. And then a new alternative citation process in Division 3. Also under Division 2, the more efficient process of not having a second hearing, but allowing the violator to request fine challenge hearing is included. The fourth is under Division 3, which is the alternative citation process. The new alternative citation process is a much more streamlined version of the process and removes some of the oddities in the current citation process. We had to clean that up. It wasn't working very well. And then also who hears the citations, where do they go to? It's been more clearly defined. And the current violations and fine schedule has been readopted into this version. And finally, the proposed revisions allows for an amnesty period by resolution if the City Council desires to do so at any time, and allows for property improvement accounts to be set up to have funding for property improvements by resolution as well. So the reason why we bring up this part is there are some concerns we want to bring up now at a staff level based on the direction, so you can consider the impacts of putting that cap of 10% on all code enforcement proceedings or liens on properties. So the first for currently in the boards and committees, a special magistrate was added. If you were, many years ago, you had a code enforcement board, which was a neighborhood board. So it clearly was a board which you appointed members to, and it was residents who, I think you moved away from that process because it can sometimes turn into a more arbitrary and capricious process where people know people and there's a lot of discussions about whether or not, the citation can be helped. In our current process, when you added the special magistrate, it's a very clear-cut process. She does listen to people, but she is confined. She has the legal experience and she takes into account what's being said, and she just follows the code as she has it. It's a better process, I believe, than what was had. But in the past, when they changed that process, they added the special magistrate under the boards and committees as board and special magistrate, which it really should have been pulled out and put into its own process. But I think at that point, they were trying to add another process and see how it worked, and it worked so well that you eventually removed the code enforcement board. So now we just have the special magistrate, so we really shouldn't have it under boards and committees anymore. So that's the first thing that this ordinance does, is it deletes that portion of the code enforcement board, which is now actually a special magistrate, from boards and committees. And it also adds Article 8, code compliance, and it adds a bunch of divisions underneath that which address how the process. A lot of it is exactly what we had before, or it follows Chapter 162. We try to clean up most things where we can. So we added an intent under that, the intent of the process. We had the process where you appoint a special magistrate. We can have more than one, so that we don't have any problems in having the special magistrate meetings. We do them once a month. And we continually have used the same magistrate, and she seems to be doing a good job in addressing the issues as they come through. We also outlined powers of the magistrate, as well as we had added definitions that are consistent with Chapter 162. So basically, we're taking Florida statutes and we're setting definitions of what these different terms are referencing. Then we move on to a Division 2, which is notice of violation procedure. So as I said before, a lot of these processes were already in the code, but they were somewhere else. We did a typical process under Chapter 162 for notification by officer, giving reasonable time. But what was added into this process for this language for efficiency was a more efficient process of not having a second hearing. You can set the expected remedy for a situation, but you could also set what the expectation is if it doesn't get remedied in time. Currently, we have to come back. So when you set a time period for someone, say you have 30 days, they come back in 30 days, and if they still haven't done something, then the code enforcement special magistrate sets the fine. So it's a double process. So it kind of pushes out the timing of bringing into compliance. So what we've done in this case is that when they come to that first hearing, you can tell them, here's what the expectation is. You will rectify the situation in 30 days. If you don't, it will be a $25 fine per day for the issue until you come into compliance. So it kind of takes out a step for the residents have to come and go from these hearings in the middle of the day. So it still gives them the notice, and it still gives them what the expectation is, and it kind of saves us time in our process. And we also have language in there about repeat offenders. So if sometimes we will get someone who will have a violation, and they will comply before we get to the special magistrate, but then a couple months later, they have the same violation again, but then they comply right before you get to the special magistrate. So there's a frustration level on the part of their neighbors. They're constantly doing the same thing, but right before they get fined or get in our process, they comply. And we do want compliance, but we want continued compliance. So in this case, a repeat offender, you'll continue to that hearing. So if this is a repeat offense by the same offender, you can comply them, but you will take them to that hearing. And the special magistrate will be told this is a repeat offender, and they will be able to act accordingly. So that's something new that's not currently in our established system. We also have a provision for administrative costs, the costs that staff bear, or that the city bears in bringing a lot of these and taking it back from, especially when you have liens, you put a lot of extra time into it. And also, we also have the process where you allow the violator to request a fine challenge hearing. They have a 20-day process that's within adding here. So once they get a $250 a day fine, which is our maximum for your initial violation, they can have 20 days to come back and say, this is too much, I think it should just be a $100 fine, here's the reason, and then go before the special magistrate again if they want to, but they only have 20 days to do that. If they don't do that within the first 20 days, then they move forward and they have to come into compliance. And if they don't come into compliance, it's the $250 a day. So continuing the process, we also have language in how the hearings are conducted, who speaks, who presents on behalf of the city. It can be the code compliance officer, it can be the city attorney. It's set forth in the language. We also have the waiver of the hearing procedure. If someone says, yes, I'm guilty, let's do a stipulation agreement, give me 25 days to bring it into order, and you can do that type of agreement as well. But they have to agree that they have been in violation. So you can also do your amount, and we have administrative fines or liens, which is also included in this, the amount, the administrative fees, and the fines imposed. We also have a duration of the lien, which is 20 years. Once the lien is 20 years old, it stops and it doesn't accrue anymore. Appeals, 30 days to the circuit court. So if you have an appeal for it, you want to appeal a decision made by the special magistrate, you have 30 days to appeal it. And then we get into liens, which we place in this process. You place them on when the accrual starts. You can record the lien for the properties. We're looking at applications for lien reductions in the language we have. We have release of liens and partial releases, We get into the requests for releases or partial releases once they've come into compliance and not before. We also have lien caps. If the value of your structure is $150,000, the lien cap should be the market value of that home, because, you know, that's really all you're going to get for it. We also had the application, the process for amnesty. So we did do a 10% minimum, you know, that they can, reduction. So the special magistrate can only reduce the lien to 10%. In many cases, you know, for instance, we had one recently where it was reduced to 10%. You know, it was someone who had brought themselves into compliance over a long period of time because they were raising the money to try to make the improvements. We have a lot of people that come to the special magistrate, and they all have a lot of stories about why they can't do it right away and why they need more time. And mostly that's to raise the money to do it. So those people who have gotten there or come into compliance, and by the time they get there, in this instance, the lien reduction for 10% was over $800. So still an amount that they would not, it was probably more than the improvements that they did, just because it had gone on for so long. So in those cases, the amnesty would come into play. So the idea is that the council would declare an amnesty week or an amnesty month, and this was proposed to counteract that 10%, which sometimes can be daunting for some of our residents. What we have discussed internally and is the possibility of a 3% cap for homesteaded properties. These are the residents that live here, and then a 5% cap for commercial and non-homesteaded. So some of the properties that maybe are owned or rented out in the community. And then utilize those as the caps, and then also do the amnesty process. In one situation, we have someone who wants to buy a property, and the liens are upwards of $180,000, but they want to do work to improve the property and make it better, and maybe turn it over or flip it or, you know, rent it out. But the 10% is what they're limited to doing, is an $18,000 payment. So in some cases, it just makes it not worth the investor's money to put that much into paying the lien, whereas if they could just get into compliance, reduce the lien. So it can become an issue as far as hindering maybe some improvements to properties as well. So we had also discussed creating, and this is in the language, a property improvement account, where a portion or some of these funds that are collected go into a property improvement account to help those that really do need the help in making those improvements to their homes when they are, you know, showing that they are trying to come into compliance as best they can. So liens are continued. We also have the unenforceable lien release. This is all language that's already in the code. If these liens are enforceable, we can release them. And then we have partial releases. And then we have requirements for notices. That is really a process that we're extending. It's what we currently do for notices for the hearings, whether that is hand delivery, or it is a certified mail, or it's a posting of the property. These are standard practices that you do to make sure that the property's been posted and the people know the violation and the time of the meeting. And then the citation procedure, this is a new alternative citation process. It's a much more streamlined version of the process and removes some of the oddities in the current citation. The current violation and fine schedule has been readopted into this version, and so when you issue a citation for a property, it's a citation for first offenders, but these can be very handy in regards to the parking violations. If someone's parked across their sidewalk continually, or someone's parked, you know, illegally on their property on the grass, you can do these citations, and we can turn over they actually get cited. It's not a notice of violation. The problem has been is when you issue a notice of violation, they usually move the car. But then you come back next week and the car's there again. So with the citation process, we're able to fine them for these violations. And you have your first offense, you have your second offense, third offense, and your fourth offense. So that citation will go up with every different offense, every subsequent offense that a property owner makes. So currently, we do have a similar process, but as far as who sees it or who makes the determination, we're clarifying the language. The special magistrate will order on it, and then we will, go through the process to secure it. So the only issue that we wanted to bring up was the 10% reduction in lien. The amnesty process kind of brings that process to council. So those of you who, would like to maybe come to some of you have been to a lot of code enforcement meetings.
Yeah.
And maybe some of you haven't, but people come and, there are a lot of people that have a lot of stories about why they can't come into compliance. Special magistrate does a really good job. She listens, and then a lot of times she says, I appreciate you coming and I appreciate you sharing, but I have to follow this process. And she does it. So she's an appointed, the special magistrate is appointed by you. She does it very compassionately, but she does what she's supposed to do. So in some cases, you may be opening up the council meetings for the amnesty process that may bring a lot of those things to your front door, especially for people who want to request lower than what you're proposing to reduce it to. So right now it's housed with the special magistrate. The amnesty process would put it with you and your determination. We have talked about possibly looking at the 3% or the 5%, which is what's been recommended by staff, and seeing how that works out in our process, and then possibly if the amnesty is still required, or if you get to a situation where you're like, no, 10% is something that we really need to have, these need to be higher, then we can move forward with making changes. But overall, code enforcement is about compliance and trying to help people to comply and wanting them to comply. I think sometimes with the big numbers on some of these liens, there may be a consideration that this can make money for the city, but it's not really intended to make money for the city. It's really intended to be a process that brings people into compliance and makes the city better and our residents happier that they're complying. So overall, staff does recommend approval of ordinance 2210. This makes some really good changes to the code that are long overdue, and we do support first reading.
Thank you. Comment or question from the council? Councilmember Noble, then Councilmember Dugo.
Just a quick question. Will there be a second reading on this?
Of course.
There will be, okay. And did we get a detailed explanation of this in our literature?
You got a memo in regards to what the changes are. A majority of the changes are all things that are currently in the code. We've had a couple updates. Like I said, citation process has been cleaned up, and we also added the language that we were directed by council to do the 10%.
Because I feel I have to read some of this just to understand it better, so I'd like to...
So you have a full ordinance, and quite honestly, in this ordinance, it's the full code, because you're actually re-adopting it in full. So it's not a portion of, like many of your other amendments to the code are. You're deleting Chapter 2's boards and committees for Code Enforcement Board, and you're adding a whole new section. So in reading the ordinance, you get the full body of what changes we're making.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugo.
So, having been too long on that Code Enforcement Board, you're absolutely right. My question is, administrative costs, would that fall? Okay, we've got a $10,000 fine plus $200 administrative costs. All of that would come before amnesty? Or would administration costs?
No, we would charge administrative costs. So the administrative costs would be by separate resolution as well.
Okay.
So if we're moving forward with the administrative costs or the other things, it would be a resolution that we'll probably bring to you at the same time as we do second reading to kind of show you what that would be. So different cities have different administrative costs. Lake Worth, or, different, like Palm Springs, some of them may charge a basic $250 for administrative fees. And these fees are your staff time for noticing, posting over and over again, your use of your city attorney, your recording. So you kind of, and then this cost can increase depending on how many how many violations you have.
Because, the objective is to get people in compliance, to take care of the problem.
Right.
But the repeat offenders and what I've seen in administrative costs at times, an amnesty would be, I would assume, a designated period that the council would determine.
It would be also by separate resolution.
By separate, okay.
And it would be a time where the council would say, maybe we would come to you and say, we have a lot of people requesting reductions.
And then we would.
Less than the 10%. Because currently, as you have it, is 10%. We could also do it with a 3 and 5.
Okay.
But the 10% is what we currently were directed to put in. And we can come to you and say, we have a lot of people requesting, and we would do a time period. And you would have the amnesty period for them to pay whatever reduction that
Very
you
good.
decide.
Okay.
And it encourages compliance.
Yes.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Tharp?
First, I like the parking violation citation portion of it. I think it's going to quickly bring people into compliance, so thank you. With regards to amnesty, like you said, everyone's got a story. I think it needs to be more quantifiable. I think if you're applying for reduction, it needs to be needs-based reduction. You can't just say, oh, that's too much and I don't want to pay it, and they have the means to pay it. So I think that's the only comment I have with regards to the amnesty is I really think it needs to truly be a needs-based, objective look at it.
Councilmember Diaz.
Thank you. I do have some questions. I was reading over this, and first of all, thank you. I think the shift of language from the word enforcement to compliance, it's subtle, but it's effective, and I think, as Councilwoman Dugo mentioned, compliance is truly the ultimate goal. I do have some questions with regards to the repeat violations and the finding of fact hearings. If I'm understanding correctly, the violation occurs, it gets remedied, it occurs a second time, it gets remedied. Is that the trigger, that second time before it goes to the special magistrate for a finding of facts?
Yes, so our code enforcement, they have districts. So it's, you get to know your district, you're acquainted with your residents that live in your district. So when you have repeat offenders, you have your first offense, which you post the violation, and then they comply. But then you get a call back, or you're back there and it's the same thing. That's when you say, you post it again, but even if you comply, you're going to go to hearing, because it's your second offense.
And then the fining would begin at that point if it occurs a third time?
Yeah.
So there wouldn't be necessarily another notice of violation, it would be, you start the fine based on the finding of fact from that special magistrate hearing?
You would, but you would still take them back to the special magistrate because they would then pose the fine.
Okay.
But-
And then the other question I have with duration of lien, if I'm understanding correctly as well, it just means that the lien stops accruing. It doesn't mean that the duration, that's it, the lien's done.
Right.
Okay. And with regards to reduction, I am having a hard time with amnesty for non-homesteaded, especially I'm having a hard time with thinking if there's an investor that's looking to purchase a property, obviously they've hopefully done their due diligence and realized that that lien is there as part of that problem. But in the case of our homesteaded properties, even when we reduce it, do we have any sort of mechanism in place to allow them to pay over time if we reduce it down to a certain point?
We don't. Usually it's within a period of time. So if you get a reduction of your lien, you have 30 days to pay it. And if you don't pay it, it goes right back up to where it was. So the amnesty period would be the same. Your reduction would be only during the amnesty period. And if you don't pay, or even if your period is drawn out to, whether it's 30 days or 3 months, you can let them do a 3-month, I imagine, however they get it paid before that amnesty period is up. But it would have to be done within that time period. Otherwise, it goes back up.
So my hesitation with that is, are we creating sort of a cycle of, I'm going to do it, it's going to get paid, and then unfortunately, life happens, maybe it doesn't, and now we're starting to give additional work administratively, hence the administrative side of things. So I don't know if there's a way to research or explore if other municipalities have done anything where they've allowed some sort of a payment plan back. Kind of like we have the liens that accrue on the daily, maybe we have a way to pay them back beyond that 30 days so that it doesn't trigger that next level of administrative work.
It's a good question. I honestly don't know the answer, so I will have to find out.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a couple of questions. How many code violations do we have annually?
Annually, your department reports, we give you what came up in this month and then what it is year to date. I think year to date on our most recent one was in the thousands. They're in as far as, they kind of break them up into different types of violations. One being, the notice of violation, some being just complaints that we ask them to comply and they comply pretty quickly. We don't go through the notice of violation process. But they're in the thousands. You're probably looking at an average of 250 to 270 a month. And that's just your notices that are being put out, especially with 4 code enforcement officers now. So our numbers have increased. We just hired 2 more, and they're doing a really great job. They haven't got through their 6-month probation, but they're already out there, doing the work that we want them to do.
And how many would you say, it could be a percentage, and this could be ballpark, escalate to a lien process?
Well, at any code enforcement hearing, once they start the process where they do an order, and that order starts accruing, that's when we do the lien. So we never know how much the lien's going to accrue to. Once it starts, it gets through that process. So in any given code enforcement hearing where you can have maybe 16 to 20 items on the agenda, you could say more than half of those actually go into the process of, she puts citations on them for.
Usually how many cases does the special magistrate see a year,
It depends on, what comply. If you comply, we usually don't take you to special magistrate. We have a lot of people that comply pretty quickly.
I guess I'm trying to get a ballpark number of how many people don't comply. That we decide, there's a lien now in your home.
I would be guessing if I gave you a number, but I can bring you all those stats.
Are we saying like 10% annually? Less?
Probably more.
More, wow.
But, I can bring you those numbers at the next meeting, just to give you your cases per year, how many comply, how many liens are out there, and, what's, we do keep that information,
right.
So.
I think a couple of, you obviously mentioned this already, but this process is really not to make money for the city. It's more to get people to comply with whatever ordinance they're breaking, whatever rule. And And I like the caps. I like giving the magistrate that flexibility. I like the 3 and the 5. At the end of the day, what I want to see is them come into compliance and be able to address the issue that's at hand. Because unfortunately, sometimes it's the neighbors that kind of pay for that person that's not into compliance. My concern is I think Councilmember Diaz brought this up, that the person that continuously goes into the system and continually has the issues. And at that point in time, how do we and that's the question, how do we get them to?
I mean, if you start a process and you have a point where your liens, hit us and they can't pay them, you can foreclose.
Right.
The direction can be, if they're not addressing their issues and they're continually showing up and they're not making efforts,
right,
you have a process for that. And it's for non-homesteaded properties. You can't you can't foreclose on a homesteaded property.
Right. And then when you talk about the 20-year stop of the lien accrual process, what if they have the home for 50 years and now the value has skyrocketed and it stops accruing? What happens then? Does it go up with the market value, or once it hits that 20 years, it's freeze in time there?
Yeah, it's a time cap, so it stops it right there. So there's no increase for market.
Right, okay. I think staff is looking for guidance on the 3 and the 5% cap. Would you mind going back to that slide? All right, so I think this is the guidance that staff is looking for. We haven't heard from Councilmember Bousquet, so I'm going to start with you, Councilmember. I think right now the cap is at 10, and they're looking to maybe move to a 3% for homesteaded residentials, 5% for non-homesteaded, in an amnesty process.
So I do have a question, because I heard two different things from you, and maybe it was the way I was listening. This is a minimum reduction in lien, not the minimum to reduce it to. So you're not saying you're going to reduce it to 10%, you're reducing it by 10%.
No, you are only allowed to reduce a lien to 10% of, you can't go any lower. I can't do a 1%. So if your lien is maybe I'm not presenting it properly.
No, I heard it two different ways. That's why I wanted to clarify. 10% minimum reduction in lien. So it's really
to 10%. You
to
can only
10%.
reduce it to 10%
right.
of it. Yeah.
The homesteaded residential I agree with, but non-homesteaded and commercial, I think should stay at the 10%. And I think that's very generous.
Okay.
Councilmember Diaz.
I have to agree. I see the homesteaded and having understanding code as I do from my past life. I really am struggling with that 5% non-homesteaded and commercial, mostly because, if it's an investor, if it's somebody who wants to purchase the property to flip it, they're aware that that lien is on that property. And if it's a power play to try to leverage getting that property, and I feel like if they really want that property, they know that going into it. So I have to agree. I'm okay with the residential 3%, but I am struggling with that 5%. I feel it's too low.
Excuse me, I think I'd like to see the wording change too, because it's kind of misleading.
Okay.
And
thank you, Ms.
Going back to the amnesty process, is that something that you're open to, Councilmember Bousquet?
An amnesty process, I think we need to further define it.
Right, but I think they want direction, whether it's something that we are interested, so that they can develop it further?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Attorney Torsigo, do you want to say anything? Okay, I thought you were. Councilmember Diaz.
Yes, I'm in favor of an amnesty for the homesteaded residential.
Only for the homestead residential?
I mean, if we're going to look at the I'm not in favor of the 5% for the non-homesteaded or commercial, which would bring us back up to the 10%, which is in the code anyway.
Okay. Councilmember Dugo.
So, for the non-homesteaded and commercial, I agree that it should be 10%. 5%, I'm not. On the amnesty process, we would need to define it, but I'm not sure that I'm agreeable to commercial or non-homesteaded.
All right, I'll give my opinion here. I'm okay with the 3 and a 10, but I think there needs to be an amnesty process for everyone, because if they're having issues coming up with the funding to fix a situation, then they should be somewhere, somehow, that we can come to a resolution. And if there's no amnesty, then we're going to have a blighted something or an issue that's outstanding, because maybe perhaps financially they're restricted. I like the comment that Deputy Mayor Tharp made, that it should be need-based. We do have small businesses. I don't know if they own property or not, but just because you're a business doesn't mean that you're making millions of dollars every single year. So I do want to have a process where we can address issues that fall through sort of the crack, you know what I mean? Like, I understand the 10%, but if we can just, what if they need 8%? Why couldn't we meet them halfway where they could be? So that's my opinion. I think at the end of the...
For home and commercial, I would listen further to the amnesty process. In terms of the quote-unquote need as to what you would charge them, you would have to have a special individual or agency or entity to be able to determine that on a person, one-by-one basis of a business. And then a lot of ambiguity comes into play as to who's doing the investigation and how legitimate is it. So the need area is a good idea, but I think it's very difficult to apply.
On the non-homesteaded, did you say 5 or 10%?
It's 3 for homestead, 5% for non-homestead and commercial.
Right, but other council members suggested going to a 10 on non-homesteaded and commercial, so I'm just asking you.
That's their opinion, that's not my opinion.
Right, so you're okay with the 5?
5 for non-homestead and commercial.
Deputy Mayor Tharp.
3% for homesteaded, 10% for non-homesteaded and commercial. And again, when we come up with the amnesty process, I trust staff to tailor it in such a way that all of our needs will be addressed. So Carol, I have nothing but faith in you.
All right, and I want to recognize City Manager McHugh.
Just to clarify something, the amnesty process, it's not necessarily a process that's going to be created that we're potentially negotiating something down. This is a forgiveness period, am I correct with that? So the amnesty process is not necessarily saying we're going to go to 7% or we're going to go to 2% or something like that. The amnesty process is being developed to be able to provide a forgiveness period, saying that for these 4 weeks, if you can come into compliance, then you can participate in this amnesty process, and then you don't have to pay, correct? If I'm understanding that correctly.
It could be, it hasn't been developed yet, but
okay.
are different.
And that's what I thought the amnesty process would be. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it's going to be. It's not a forgiveness period or based on what you're hearing, it wouldn't be a forgiveness period. It is going to be something that potentially could be negotiated.
That was my understanding. I'm not sure how Lake Worth does it. I know they do an amnesty process, whether it's, I don't think that they allow as long as they're in compliance, because a lot of people are already in compliance with their liens. So I guess that would be one direction you could go. The other process would be, setting a new minimum, or just pay administrative costs, or, pay whatever bills are associated with your lien that's out there.
I think the only thing, Mayor, if I can add one more thing, I think the only thing that I just want to caution everybody about, and I think that we just need to be as clear as possible as to however we create these guidelines, because I think that there, well, if you're looking at a certain set of circumstances, such as the deputy mayor said, that, it should be needs-based. Who's the determiner of whose need? And I think that that's just the one thing to be understood, who determines what the need is. And that's an important thing to understand. And I think as staff, we'll go back and take a look at that, we'll work through that, but that is something that it can be difficult to try and quantify at some point or other.
It currently does read, "The City Council may, from time to time, by resolution, approve an amnesty program to incentivize property owners to bring their properties into compliance and obtain a release of liens from the city. The amnesty program may reduce the maximum lien reduction percentage set forth in Section 302F, which is the 10%. The amnesty program resolution shall set forth a temporary time frame for the amnesty program to be available to property owners by written application." So it's a written application, you have to be in compliance, and you can determine, what the reduction is.
So basically,
Councilmember Duga.
so basically, someone would have to come before the council and say, here's my personal tax return, look at that information to grant amnesty, minus administration fees. And what if that person is a constant offender? You grant that amnesty, and boom, they're ahead, back in front of the magistrate.
So you can determine, like right now, you set the amnesty period, and if they're in compliance, they can get, so it would be an administrative process. You could set, all right, everyone who's in compliance at this point can go down to 1% or 3% or 2%. And then you would allow, it would just be an administrative process where we would, make sure they're in compliance, and then collect the money, and then the lien would be removed. Unless you decide to add additional requirements, as far as being, right now it doesn't really have a qualification process. Like you say, if you want to determine there's a need, the discussion was, everything that's submitted to us becomes public record. There may or may not be people who want to have their personal finances in the public record. So, when you make those, when you create this process, I think we would put something before you that would allow for a reduction. If you wanted to have a program in place that made people qualify for the amnesty, because right now it's just compliance that qualifies them, as it's written.
Deputy Mayor Thorpe, and then Councilmember Noble.
Just
That's why I interrupted.
going back, we would have to pass an ordinance for every amnesty period, or if we chose to go down that route.
It would be a resolution.
Resolution, okay. So then we can word that resolution however we want at that time. If it's half, the 1.5% and 5%, or whatever numbers we want, we can make it up at that point and determine what it is and what criteria at the resolution. Correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
We just create the process now? Is that what we're...
No, the code change allows for it.
Okay.
And then we would bring the resolution before you, and you would, we would probably have a proposed resolution, and then you could propose something different if you're not happy with what,
Thank you.
Councilmember Noble.
Obviously, this is a very important subject, and obviously, we're supposed to cover a lot of these things in the first reading, but it seems to be a little unknowns here and there. So I'd like to make a motion that we table this ordinance till our next meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, but I did want to say can I say something before?
Yeah, Councilmember Busquet.
I think amnesty, as the city manager defined it, is one thing, and then if we want to do something that makes allowance for people that need it or require forgiveness is a separate issue, in my opinion. I think it should be handled differently. Because amnesty, you're saying, citizens of Green Acres, bring your property into compliance between May 1st and May 30th, and we will forgive your fines, or your fines will be 3%. And then needs-based thing, I think, should be considered separately. I don't know what that should look like, but
Mr.
I
Mayor,
think that's...
point of order. We're supposed to be discussing the motion. I think we're discussing something else right now.
I seconded it. I seconded your motion, but I did want to make a statement before I did.
So when we have a motion, we always let comments and discussions occur. So, understood. I have a motion on the floor at this time. Are there any other comments or questions before I go?
For first reading at the next meeting.
That's my motion.
All right, I do want to make a comment here. I think right now we're tabling something for two minor things that we're debating, whether it's 5 or 10 or the amnesty process. You know, our staff worked on this extremely hard. I think Kara, you did a great presentation. I encourage you guys to get the packets ahead of time. I encourage you to do your homework. I encourage you to read the agenda. I encourage you to contact the planning administrator, the person presenting, if you have questions, and to contact the city manager, so that we don't have to sit here for an hour discussing one topic and then having to table it. So that's just my two.
I would like to make a second.
Hold on. All right.
I'd like to make a motion.
I have a substitute motion on the floor. Deputy Mayor Tharp.
Motion to approve with the 3% for homesteaded, 10% for non-homesteaded, and a creation of a amnesty process in general.
Second. Well, wait a minute. Creation? Consideration?
No, the way it's written, it's in there, whether or not we choose to do it in the future.
Okay, but you use the word creation.
It's creating that we're putting in the possibility of a process.
Okay.
Correct.
Then I will second.
All right, I have a substitute motion to approve first reading with, as it stands, with just the 5% of non-homestead and commercial going to a 10.
10%.
Going from 5 to 10 on the non-homestead and commercial lien. All right. Am I understanding that correctly? A second by
Yes.
Councilmember Dugo.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just clarify.
Yes, please.
So since Commissioner Bousquet withdrew the second, the original motion died, so this isn't really a substitute motion, it's a new motion.
Oh, Councilmember Bousquet withdrew?
I did withdraw my second.
Okay. All right, so then this is the motion on the floor. Are there any other comments or questions at this time? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
All right, that motion carries 4-1. Let the record reflect Noble. Councilmember Noble opposed.
Do you want to do mine now?
All right, sorry, I lost track. We are on item 11, designation of deputy mayor. We have City Manager Andrew McHugh presenting.
Thank you, Mayor. Our city code charter, the city's charter provides that one of the members of the city council will be identified as deputy mayor, who shall serve in such capacity at the pleasure of the council. The deputy mayor shall perform all of the mayoral duties during the absence or disability of the mayor. The city does not have any other provisions regarding term of appointment or criteria to be eligible to serve as deputy mayor.
May I?
I'm going to defer to our deputy mayor first, Councilmember Tharp.
Thank you. So, it's been an honor to serve. Luckily, I didn't have to do anything. I think the mayor had perfect attendance the last 12 months. So, thank you for allowing me to do absolutely nothing. Couple things I wanted to bring up. Back in 2016, the council policy was changed, where we removed a lot of the criteria with regards to how many terms, someone can serve. So, A, I'd like to, A, not be considered this year. B, I'd like to address if we can get something and review and put something into the council policy once again for the next meeting. That would be appreciated. And with that, I am going to nominate Paula Bousquet to serve as deputy mayor.
Interesting, okay. Councilmember Bousquet, you had, you wanted to
Thank you.
speak? Then I'll go to Councilmember Noble and then Councilmember Dugo.
Thank you, Deputy.
Did you get a motion on that? Did you get a second on that?
There was no motion on the floor.
He didn't make a motion?
He did not make a motion.
All right, the
I'm
policy.
going to let,
Our deputy mayor said that we changed the policy. The policy was never changed. It was just deviated for special exceptions. I can tell you if we brought up our past mayor, Sam Ferrari, who was mayor for 24 years, he will tell you that it was the same person every year. Not the same person, it was a different person for 1 year. It was and you could bring up Chuck Shaw, who knew that policy. You could bring up Richard Ratcliffe, who also knew that policy. And somewhere along the line for the last few years, it got deviated to make it a 2-year policy. I had suspected that John Sarver would be nominating himself. But the fact that he's nominating, which is something different than what I'm explaining, the fact that he's nominating Paula Bousquet, which is a deviation of the policy, which is you go from district to district. And I have not served as deputy mayor now for many years, and every council person has served already their term. So therefore, I am the person that is eligible to be the deputy mayor.
for clarification from our city council, city manager and city attorney, can you one more time read the criteria, or?
Sure. The only language that the city has related to deputy mayor is within the city code, and it states the city council shall designate one of its members as deputy mayor, who shall serve in such pleasure of the council. The deputy mayor shall perform all of the mayoral duties during the absence or disability of the mayor. It also has included that in the event of the simultaneous absence of the mayor and deputy mayor at a city council meeting, and with the existence of a quorum, the council members present at such meeting shall elect one of its members to preside over the meeting. That presiding council member shall retain all voting powers during the duration of said meeting. Due to the rescinding of the Council Policy 12 in 2016, so there was no change. That council policy was rescinded in 2016. The city has no provisions regarding term of appointment or criteria to be eligible to serve or the council that it may choose. Any nominee for deputy mayor must have served one full term as a council member prior to being eligible for nomination. In addition, no council member serve as deputy mayor in excess of 2 successive years. Again, that council policy was in April of 2016.
Okay. All right, a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
So you're not going to let me speak?
Well, I do have a motion on the floor, so do I have a second?
Who made the motion?
I'm sure,
You made a motion.
I made a motion that I be the...
oh, I'm going to second, because I want a discussion.
Thank
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Noble to appoint himself as the deputy mayor. I have a second by Councilmember Dugo. At this point in time, I'm going to open the floor for comments or questions. Councilmember Bousquet.
Thank you. I was going to refer to Council Policy 12 and suggest that we implement that again, because it's my belief that the mayor should have some say in who represents him in his absence. And that was done away with in 2000, I thought it was 15, but I'm sure Mrs. McHugh is correct. Also, subsequent to eliminate...
Okay, normally when a person makes a second, I get the first one to speak, but I did not mind deferring to Councilwoman Bousquet. What I would like to say is, I don't like the popularity contest. I like the fact that Mr. Tharp was District 1, Mr. Nobles 2, I'm 3, and I would like to see that sequence used when nominating or the mayor or the city clerk recommending the next deputy mayor. I think that's the best sequence to use. It doesn't become a 3-to-2 issue or a popularity contest. If the person in District 2 has only been there 1 year, okay, then that moves to District 3. But I think that is a fair way of doing it, and right now, Mr. Noble's District 2, so that would be why I definitely second him, and he is the statesman.
All right, there any other comments from the council? All right, I do have a question for Councilmember Noble. Do you currently sit on the League of Cities board?
No.
Because?
Because my term of office expired.
I believe it still hasn't expired, is that correct, City Manager McHugh?
What does this have to do with my...
I'm going to get to that point. I believe at the next League of Cities is
I actively
the...
performed all duties when I was on the League of Cities board.
If that is correct, why have you not attended the League of Cities board meeting since October?
October? That's not true.
That is true. I got the attendance record
Yes,
from the League of
your
Cities.
attendance record is not correct.
All right. Why did you fail to notify this board that you were not reapplying for that board seat representing the City of Green Acres on the League of Cities?
Where does it say that I have to do that?
You don't have to. I think it would be proper.
Well, then don't bring it up.
I am bringing it up.
Well, you're wasting my time.
I'm not wasting your time.
You're making a personal thing out of this because I didn't tell you so that you could be on that board, right? And you don't qualify to be on that board.
So it's a vendetta against me?
No, you're a vendetta against me.
Why? I am simply asking, why did you not notify the council so that perhaps we could even ask or encourage the City Manager BQ to sit on that board?
I did not have to ask or mention it to anyone if I did not want to, or I did not have to. And you're making an issue out of nothing.
It's not an issue of nothing, Councilmember Noble. I'm simply asking because if you want to be the deputy mayor, there are duties and roles that you will have to commit to if...
Bullshit.
Whoa! Order, Councilmember Noble.
Mr. Mayor, I asked
God.
you if I could put my name in for the League of Cities. I thought that was what we were supposed to do.
I'm simply asking Councilmember Noble what his commitment level is. All right, so I
You who campaigned against me is telling everyone here in this audience that you're not finding a vendetta against me? Are you saying that? You who campaigned verbally and on videotape against me?
Sir, point of order, this has nothing to do with campaigning or politicking. I'm simply asking the facts regarding a board that you represent the city for, and you simply stopped attending in October. And now you want to become the deputy mayor. I don't understand how that works. All right, I have a motion on the floor.
Mayor.
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Noble nominating himself, second by Councilmember Dugo. Did I hear I have a substitute motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that Mr. Tharp serve a second year as deputy mayor.
Second.
All right, I have another substitute motion. All right, I have a substitute motion made by Councilmember Bousquet to nominate Deputy Mayor Tharp, second by Councilmember Diaz. I believe I take the second, okay.
Can I
Are there
comment
any
first?
comments or questions at this time? Deputy Mayor Tharp.
Thank you. B, I will only accept if we revisit Council Policy 12 in some fashion at the next meeting, will be my, we need some sort of policy in place so this doesn't continue to happen. So that's the only way I will accept is if we put something on the agenda regarding Policy 12 and reinstating some policy, Council Policy 12.
So moved.
Hold on, I got a comment from Councilmember Dugo.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tharp, but you originally declined, and I'm assuming because you work full-time and the schedule's tough, and you originally passed on it. And I'm sure you had reasons for it, and I don't want you to feel that you were put in a position to have to accept it, and if Mr. Noble is capable of doing it, I think that this would askew
To explain myself,
Let me go back to Deputy Mayor Tharp and then Councilmember Busquet.
the reason I originally did not want to was because I think it should be rotated.
Yeah.
Going back to Policy 12, where you could only serve 1 year. And I wanted to be the person who started it, but clearly there's some issues going on up here. If it takes a year, I'm happy to serve again. Again, provided we address Policy 12.
why,
Councilmember Dugo. And then I'm going back to Councilmember Busquet.
why, and the mayor obviously is opposed to Mr. Noble being deputy mayor. And I'm going to put Mr. Tharp on the spot, sir. Why is there an opposition to that? Mr. Noble has served a long time on our council.
Absent of Policy 12, it's the wild, wild west up here.
Okay, that's why I like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like that.
And I think we should go, that's why I suggest, I'd be only going to accept it if we put Policy 12 back into place in some fashion. I think that's my criteria. So if it's a delay for Mr. Noble to become deputy mayor by 1 year, it's 1 year out of a 4-year term.
Tharp said that he accepts and the council with him that at next meeting there will be agenda in some form of discussion to get time form and then we adopted to that.
Okay. So, Deputy Mayor Tharp, you were nominated, there's a second. Do you formally accept?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions before I get a vote? All right, I have a subsequent motion made by Councilmember Busquet, second by Councilmember Diaz, nominating Deputy Mayor Tharp to remain as a deputy mayor for another year. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed, I'm sorry.
All right, so that vote carries 3-2. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Dugo and Noble were in opposition. At this point in time, do we want to...
I'd like to make a motion.
To what?
To review the
Okay, that's
policy 12,
to bring up for
deputy mayor, yes.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Dugo to bring, what's the line item again?
It's Council Policy 12.
To bring Council Policy 12 back to be discussed at the next agenda, the next council meeting. I believe it was second by Councilmember Busquet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries 5-0. All right, our next item is appointment of the League of Cities voting delegate. We have City Manager Andrew McHugh presenting.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, the voting delegate is separate from the board member, so the voting delegate, the Palm Beach County League of Cities regular meeting of the municipal membership is held on the fourth Wednesday of each month unless a change has been designated by the board. In accordance with Article 4 of their bylaws of the Palm Beach County League of Cities, each municipal member, by proper motion of its governing body, shall annually designate a voting delegate and alternates if so desired. The voting delegates will be members of the governing body or the city manager who vote on behalf of the municipality at any League of Cities general membership meeting, special general membership meeting, or function of the general membership. So The voting delegate, again, there's no impacts, but the voting delegate needs to be submitted to the League of Cities before the beginning of May. And the voting delegate can either be a staff representative or elected officials, and then there can be alternates as well.
Thank you. I think I would like to see our city manager, Andrew McHugh, be that person. I believe she attends every single League of Cities. Am I correct about that, City Manager McHugh?
That is correct, yes. The League of Cities general membership meetings, not the board meetings, the general membership meetings, correct. Those are the ones that are on the fourth Wednesday of each month.
I just know that she attends every single meeting, so I think it would be good for her to be that.
I'd like to make a motion for Ms. Andrea McHugh to be the League of Cities voting delegate.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Dugo, second by Councilmember Bousquet. Are there any other comments or questions from the council? And I recognize City Manager.
Mayor, if I can, thank you very much for that designation. I think the only thing is we probably should list a couple of alternates just to be safe. And you can list several alternates if you'd like, but then those alternates, in the absence of something that comes up, the alternates would be able to vote as well during those general membership meetings.
I have a question.
So should we continue on with the motion right now and then do alternates?
You can either do that, or the motion is to have the voting delegate and then additionally add whoever the council would like to add as alternates.
I think, personally, I think any council member could be an alternate. I believe our city clerk also attends frequently, and I believe Austin attends. Am I correct about the attendance here?
That is correct. That is normally with that department council member to alternate,
and then, if necessary, any other council member fill in as alternate. Second.
Can we?
And the city clerk.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You are getting off that easy.
So I have to name our city manager the voting delegate for the League of Cities, with the alternates being the council, the mayor, and the city clerk. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. That motion was made by Councilmember Dugo, second by Deputy Mayor Tharp. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, we have one discussion item that was added at the beginning of the meeting, and that's redistricting. We have city...
Did we
Councilmember Dugo.
One more.
Did we do
the TPA? The TPA.
Do TPA first.
I think I skipped TPA, so I'm out of order. Wow. I apologize, everyone. I'm going back to item 12, which I skipped. The appointment of Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency alternate member. Once again, we have City Manager Andrew McHugh.
Thank you, Mayor. The mayor is the appointed representative to the Palm Beach County Transportation Planning Agency. The alternate member just attends any meetings on the mayor's behalf should the mayor not be able to attend. So we just need, they are requesting that an alternate member be provided in case one is needed.
Just to give a little background, usually the requirement for that is the third Thursday, and I'm looking at Kara, it's the third Thursday of the month from 9 to whenever. It might be 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. That's usually, they usually cancel 1 or 2 throughout the year, so it's probably 10. I know last year I had conflicts probably once, so that there are times that I might not be able to attend that particular meeting, so just giving everybody a fair warning that that does require a little bit of time. You got to do your homework, diligence, and some of the meetings can drag out a little.
Does that position alternate require a council, or can it be staff?
No, it has to be an elected official,
Okay.
and we can only miss, I believe, 3 meetings before that particular municipality can be removed. So that's what. Am I correct about the 3? I don't know about you. For me, it's 2. It's 2. So yeah, so we can only miss 2. Now, if your alternate attends, doesn't count as an absence. All right, so is there anybody that may have flexibility at work, and that you can maybe commit yourself to one, maybe two in a year?
Mr. Mayor, I could do it, but you promised too. No, I mean, if no one else is available, Ms. Bousquet, Ms. Diaz.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Councilmember Bousquet.
volunteered.
Oh, I like that hand up there.
That's fine. I'll be happy to do it
Okay.
if Councilwoman Dugo does not want to.
Can we list more than one alternate?
No, it's just one alternate.
I nominate Bousquet. Her hand looked really good up there.
I'll second.
My hand was
So can I have a motion?
Motion to appoint the alternate for the Transportation
Planning Agency.
Yes, Ms. Councilwoman Bousquet.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Dugo to nominate, or to appoint Councilmember Bousquet as the TPA alternate member, second by Councilmember Diaz. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion carries 5-0. We're now really getting to the restricted thing, discussion item that was added earlier at the meeting. City Council Member Dugo.
And thank you, everyone, for allowing me to add this to our discussion. But after our redistricting meeting, I'd like to go on record of opposing the division of the River Bridge Business Plaza from the River Bridge residential community. River Bridge is a large, desirable community in Green Acres. We have multi-home options, apartments, townhomes, condos. The River Bridge Business Plaza is a direct link to the characteristics of our multi-community. It includes neighbors that gather at the River Bridge Plaza. They utilize the business services. Some are employees of that plaza, and the location is River Bridge. Our main entrance is River Bridge Boulevard. Our monuments are River Bridge Plaza. To divide the two from one another in separate districts would be a disservice to the community, one of the largest communities in the city of Green Acres, and a thriving community. I request that we look at other options with this area for redistricting and keep together both the business and the residential community of River Bridge. Once again, I would like to ask the council to redirect our city manager to meet with FAU again, because in looking at the option that we chose, which I believe was 1, and it was pretty similar to 5, but on both of those options, the division is Forest Hill Boulevard, and they have taken just that plaza south of Forest Hill Boulevard and jog. And it absolutely makes no sense. My community has already spoken to me. They don't approve of it. They don't support it. Now, River Bridge Plaza means nothing as far as votes, and we are an at-large community for voting, so that is not the issue. The issue is this is a business plaza directly attached to our community. When you go in through River Bridge Boulevard. So I would just like the council to possibly ask the city manager to meet with FAU, because he said when I asked him why, he was opposed to it, but you could do it. Now, I don't know if they just look at population, they just look at its streets, and if they are looking at streets, Forest Hill Boulevard, you just took a chunk of it, moved it to 4, and it made no sense to me. So I'm bringing that issue in the hopes that my colleagues would ask, again, for the city manager to speak with FAU. And, I mean, I took pictures, which everyone knows. You drive into River Bridge, District 3. So that's my discussion. And I would like to ask if the mayor would ask consensus and get some direction, if possible. I appreciate it.
So I think we have a point of order, and I'm going to refer to our attorney Tercivia here. But I do want to clarify some of the statements. I believe, and I'm looking to the city manager for clarification, it had to do with continuity, and he said that if we decided to remove the plaza, he would now make that recommendation and on the record. Is that correct, that he?
He had said that, right, it was to make it contiguous, to make that district contiguous, and he had advised that the council could make the decision to include the plaza within District 3, but he could not support that. That's because of the contiguity of having the district touching, or District 4 touching from the plaza going east, and then from the plaza going north. That was my understanding of the presentation.
And the point of order that I wanted to come up to defer to our attorney Tercivia is, once a vote has been taken, who can recall that vote?
So a motion for reconsider can be made by anyone who is on the prevailing side.
On the prevailing side? Okay. Do I have a motion to revisit that from anybody on the prevailing side? Councilmember Dugo.
I'm making the motion because this is coming up for, I think, in the 18th for a first reading. And I would also ask the council, because FAU says, if you look again at that map, it shows it's absolutely, I really am making that motion.
Mayor.
Okay, so.
Are you making a motion?
All right, once again, I'm going to the point of order from our city attorney. Can I entertain this motion?
Was Councilman Dugo on the prevailing side at the last meeting? I don't think so, but
I don't.
I'm going to check with the clerk.
No, I believe she was on the prevailing side. I believe it was 4-1, and while vision for all.
Really?
Okay.
You're not going to give the supporters of River Bridge.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Dugo. Second by Councilmember Noble. Are there any comments or questions, council?
Comment.
All right, Councilmember Noble and then Councilmember Diaz.
I remember the conversation by the professor. He said it could be done, but he wasn't in favor of it. So I therefore endorse this motion because he said it could be done, and it should be done.
No, he didn't say it should be done. He said it could be.
I said it should be done.
All right, I have Councilmember Diaz and then Deputy Mayor Tharp.
So thank you. If I'm understanding correctly, the issue with contiguity has to do with properties, with parcels, not the street. So the reason that the professors were saying that it's not contiguous is because you would cross from the corner where the Goodwill Plaza corner is in the McDonald's across to the Mobile, so there's no two parcels that are actually touching each other, which breaks the contiguity of the district, of District 4. I am not opposed to looking at how we can keep Riverbridge Plaza with District 3, because I do think that Councilmember Dugo brings up very valid points. It's known as Riverbridge. But I don't know, I mean, and again, this goes back to whether we revisit or don't revisit. I don't know how else, I see where FAU was coming from with making that the way to create a contiguous district with District 4. And yes, they did mention it could be done, but they mentioned that they couldn't support that decision if that's what the council opted to go with.
All right, Deputy Mayor Stott.
Councilmember Dugo, I do agree with you. I mean, I think everyone knows River Bridge Shopping Plaza is, connected. I guess my points are, we hired experts to do a report. They're the experts in this, so we do have to give them some, credence that, they've got the administrative and educational, background to do this. I guess my fear is if we make an exception, where do we draw the line if, now we've got this other portion that's not contiguous and somebody goes, I want that district. That's my fear. I'm not saying it's founded, I'm just saying I don't want it to become an issue. I'm with Council Member Diaz. I think if we can find a way, yes, let's figure it out. But I don't know what the solution is, because, they didn't present the solution as well.
And what I wanted to say was, these are numbers and facts, and they're looking at population. But if you visually look at the Goodwill Plaza, north of Jog and all that area, obviously District 4. If you visualize the corner of Jog and Forest Hill, how do you visualize even that parcel of River Bridge Plaza being District 4? So, I really would like, I just would like maybe if the city manager could discuss this with FAU.
So before I give the floor back to the council members, I would like to call on the city manager to give us a point of clarity on expenses. I just want a point of clarity, what it would require to bring back the consultants. So if you can just give us that before we move on.
Initially, they provided a proposal to do the findings and then the final recommendations, which you heard, I believe that was last week. So initially, they provided that. I would go back to them and just, explain what the situation is. I don't know if they will provide another proposal and say, well, if we're going to go back and take a look at this, if we're looking at
If we decide to agree to Ms. Delo's proposal, what's the consequences? Who's going to penalize us? What agency, what government, what are we up against if we disagree, we agree to do that? Who's going to come back to us? That's part of what you have to find, city manager. What is the consequence? I don't think there's any consequence.
Since there's a question that is posed, couldn't we be opening ourselves up for a lawsuit?
No.
Why? Well, because there's some rules that have to be followed for, and I could be incorrect, but I guess that's my question is, isn't there some rules that you have to follow when you do redistricting, which is kind of the first two slides that they covered, and he talked about that. So I'm going to defer to the legal expert, Attorney Torcivia.
Well, you're correct. There is always the risk of some kind of litigation if someone wants to challenge the maps on any number of grounds, that it's not equal representation, for example. I think all the numbers were pretty equal. How successful someone would be claiming that because it wasn't contiguous, that's hard to look into that crystal ball, but they could file that kind of lawsuit. I'd almost, if FAU is going to come back, then I think that's a good question for them, is what is the risk of someone filing that type of a voting rights lawsuit?
I have a question for the attorney.
All right. I'll entertain your question, Councilmember Digo.
Mr. Torcivia, is it mandatory for us to do redistricting? I mean, I guess we had to look at it every 10 years, but it's not mandatory.
Well, you would clearly, your risk of getting a lawsuit would increase a lot if you didn't do anything at all, because the districts were so disparate. I think you had one with almost 12,000, one with less than 7,000.
And I would agree, population-wise, absolutely. Totally disagree with that parcel.
Right, that's the key to the whole redistricting, is always relatively compact, fair, equal voting districts.
Right, and this particular plaza has no voting, there's no issues regarding voting. The people that own those businesses don't vote, I don't believe. If they did, it would be, 5 people? So that population doesn't affect the count, the justifiable count we need to redistrict.
I think the nearest analogy I can come up with is when you annex, you've got to have property next door to annex. You can't just jump across and get it. I think that was the analogy that they were getting at, that the properties have to touch, have to be some contiguous properties, and I think they said the only way would be kind of jumping catty corner, from the one plaza on the, what would that be, the southwest side,
But they jumped in other areas.
So, again, if you want to bring them back, I think these are all good questions. You explored this a bit at the last meeting, and I think they gave their opinion that you could make this choice. They would not support that choice. That's their opinion. They were hired to be the redistricting experts, but you can always delve further. I could do additional research if you wanted to on how important contiguity is. I was frankly relying on their expertise.
Right. I believe Councilmember Busquet?
We hired experts for $27,000. There were reasons that it could be done another way.
Right, but the issue map 2, 3, and 4, I believe, cut Woodbridge right in half.
Yeah.
And we decided not to do
Right.
that.
All right, I do have a motion on floor, Councilmember Lugo, to asking staff to, I believe it's to hire the consultants to come up with another option?
I don't know if it would be rehired, but certainly to have a conversation with them regarding this. I don't know if they charge by the hour or what. Yes.
Yeah, I can go back to them and I can just explain the situation, and then they will tell me, for us to look at this, this is what it's going to be, or this is what it's going to cost, or we can do this, or you can do that.
I would recommend that would be my motion.
Just make the formal motion so I
The
understand.
motion would be for the city manager to call FAU and discuss with them the possible change, especially in relationship to this plaza and District 3, and the cost.
Second.
All right, have a motion made by Councilmember Dugo, second by Councilmember Noble. No other comments or questions from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I believe that's 3. All opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries 3-2 to talk to FAU to see what we can do about that corner plaza. All right. Comments from the public on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak on any items, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Mayor Flores, Deputy Mayor Tharp, council members, City Manager McHugh, and City Attorney Torcivia. Thank you for allowing us to be here in front of you to talk on behalf of the American Legion. The American Legion, if you're not aware, is the biggest veteran organization in the world. Why I say the world is because we're also located in Mexico, the Philippines, Germany, and France. We have almost 2 million members, and in the state of Florida alone, in comparison to numbers, we have 1.75 veterans in the state of Florida. 1.2 of those veterans are actually combat veterans that were deployed at one point during their service to our country. And as an American Legion, we're here to support these veterans, their families, and the community. So very quickly, the American Legion is 103 years old as of February 15th of this year. And before I continue on, I just want to make sure that I have a timeline, because I know we've been here for a long period of time, Okay, thank you very much for that clock. So the reason why I'm here is because at Green Acres, you do have a post, American Legion post
258.
258. That's why he's here, for Green Acres. We want to advocate for the post because at this point, we're currently debating whether or not we're going to be removing their charter, which means that now you won't have an American Legion post in Green Acres. We do a lot within the American Legion. I also have a post. I'm a commander of a post without a home, and this is what we do. We provided in this past year 257 turkeys to meals to families within the community, not only veterans. We provided over 4,000 toys to children during the month of December. We also support POST, Pediatric Oncology staff team with at least 31 kids presently at St. Mary's Hospital dealing with cancer. And we're actually going to be doing a run next week on Friday to provide them with toys and also gift cards with our Legion Riders. And I'm looking at the time here. I'm not going to have enough time. So what I'm looking for is support from the community, support from the city in providing a venue for these members to possibly come together. We've done that in the past few months where we actually paid out of pocket to do that from the helpful helping hands from Austin and as well as some of the other members of the community. But at this point, at 13 seconds, I don't know if I could say anything else before then. Thank you.
You get a little bit of a grace period, so.
Okay, I appreciate that. So the thing with the posts here at Green Acres is historically, they've been here since 1994. They've done a lot within the community, and I'll tell you what they've done recently. During Veterans Day, we actually had an active duty soldier who was on active duty, Sergeant First Class Angel Antigua. He spoke on behalf of the military during your Veterans Day event here in Green Acres. This is the kind of stuff that we do within the community. We have 20 posts within the state of, not within the state, but within the district, which comprises Palm Beach County and a portion of Martin County. And 90% of those posts actually work hand in hand with their local governments, whether it be town, village, or city, in supporting the different veteran events, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Flag Day, and 4th of July. We also do different events within the community to support the community overall. We have several programs that includes Legacy Scholarship, that it used to be where for a student to qualify for a Legacy Scholarship worth up to $20,000 to be able to go to school, their parent, mom or dad, would have died in the line of duty during combat in Afghanistan and Iraq. Because the numbers actually weren't there, we have over $7 million in our account, and we're trying to spend that money. So what we did was we actually revisited the qualifications, and now we're also providing this program to veterans who are at least 50% disabled, who have kids that are going to be going into college. The community doesn't know this. The general population doesn't know this. The other program we have for our veterans is Project Vet Relief. Within the state of Florida, which is 2 of the 50 states, we provide a program that if any veteran or any active duty personnel needed assistance, that we could help them out. And that means paying their rent, for instance, paying their utility bills, taking care of the repair of their
Castro, I'm going to have to cut you off. I know you're very passionate about this, and I personally thank you for your dedication to this great cause. I do want to defer, and just to let you know, we don't usually enter into dialogue when we have public comments. What is our policy from a city standpoint regarding, and I'm assuming the question at hand is, can we provide space for your group? So am I correct about that?
Well, that's the slight partial, because at this point, being under the revitalization process, that's one of the avenues that we want to look in, is to whether or not the city is going to be willing to help out this post. Yes.
Okay. So when we look at nonprofits as a whole, and it's obviously not just one organization that usually wants or needs from the city, what is our policy when, I know we have...
Point of order. I think this should be brought up as a discussion item at our next meeting.
Okay,
To give them the full benefit of reviewing their issue.
I completely agree with you, Councilmember Noble. I think we should definitely revisit this at the next council meeting, so let's put it on the discussion item for the next meeting, but as a point of clarity, what is the traditional policy for nonprofits with how we get engaged and what we do for nonprofits? And Michelle might be have a better answer.
Yep, we can look into that, Mayor.
All right, perfect. All right, Sergeant Castro, if perhaps you can be at the next meeting, we're going to have a discussion about this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. All right, is there anyone else wishing to speak on non-agenda items? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Marie Reddy. I live in Park Point at 3331 Perimeter Drive. My reason for being here is because we would like to remove a tree from the residents, in front of the residents in our single, I have an HOA with 2 buildings. There's one tree that drops golf ball sized seeds on the walkway and in the parking place of the people that live in Building 14. And when we came to Green Acres, they emphatically said that the rules currently on tree removal, they can only be removed if the tree is dead or it's interfering with the foundations of the condos. I'm here to ask the council if they would open a dialogue for guidelines for tree removal for things other than that. Like the rule is very narrow, and they don't allow for special circumstances. This is a large tree. The backside is trimmed back because it's too close to the building, but the front side is then leading over into the parking lot. We would like to cut this down because when the residents try to get in their cars, they can fall and injure themselves when they step on these seeds. The residents in those condos are over 70 and into 80 years old, and if they fall, it would be disastrous. They would land on cement car stops or their car bumpers that would substantially hurt them. This is a definite safety hazard which should be considered for removal. There's nothing that they had said before that we could do to this tree, because Park Point has come into the office for that, and I don't remember what it was, and they said, no, it's not dead, and it's not interfering with foundations. If you really want to serve the people of Green Acres, you should have a safety thing where the resident, unfortunately, that way we could remember, we need something that we can remove this tree. Otherwise, the resident could fall and most likely sue us. And there's nothing we can do about it because you're not letting us cut down this tree. And it is a definite safety hazard. I want to know what kind of procedures do we have to do to follow to get you to entertain other reasons for cutting down trees.
May I make a comment? As a point of order, I think we should bring as a discussion item this issue about trees at our next meeting. I bring this up because when you build a condo complex and you put nice young little beautiful trees there, 30 years from now, all of a sudden they're monsters and creating a safety hazard for the individuals that live there. So I think we ought to discuss this and review it and find where we can have specialist exceptions to this problem.
All right, let's add it to the next council meeting's agenda. Thank you, ma'am, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak, please state your name and address for the record.
Benjamin Wade, 3550 South 57th Avenue. This is mostly to Ms. McHugh. When the Charter Review Board met on appointing a deputy mayor, I know the council didn't take that agenda up, but the agenda was there for the council to look at. So I'm just bringing that up as a point of reference. So if you guys want to look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So when we bring that discussion item, let's bring that recommendation from the Charter Review Committee. Thank you, Ben. Anyone else wishing to speak, please state your name and address for the record.
Jean-Michel Million, 5760 Pinewood Drive. I live in a 55 and over community and right next to Rambo Park. I'd like for you to maybe visit quality of life issues with the park being so close, because after 10 o'clock or so, there are soccer players that play out there and they make a whole lot of noise. I don't know if you've looked into that. And so when I try calling the community center up there, they said it's a matter for the police. When I try calling the police, and they say it's a matter for the community center. So I think it's an issue that's quite valid. The other thing is that I'm a school teacher. I do the Wellington Film Festival, and I'd like to bring that over to Green Acres as well. I've worked together with Rochelle, who owns Movies of Del Rey and Movies of Lake Worth, and she's completely embracing this. And I think since I'm a school teacher, this is an opportunity for our students to show their work and not be addicted to content so much and to actually deliver it. So I'd love to have a dialogue with anyone in the community about maybe helping us, sponsoring it, and or what have you. And I think it's an awesome opportunity, since this is my new neighborhood for the past 3 years. All right, well, thank you.
Great, thank you for taking time to come and speak to us. I'm going to refer you to Michelle Thompson right here. She's I don't know if you were here at the early part of the meeting. She works with a youth development.
I think I was here 3 years ago.
Okay, excellent. In regards to the parks, don't the parks close at 9?
Yeah, we can, we'll follow up with PBSO.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll follow up with PBSO.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, moving over to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two reminders. Our next community conversation is regarding autism awareness on the 13th of April from 6:30 to 8 at the community center, and our extravaganza event is on the 16th of April at Samuel J. Ferrari Community Park. That's it for me.
Thank you. City Attorney Torcivia.
No report.
All right, moving on to the mayor and city council's report. I believe I started to my left last time, so I'm going to start to my right. Deputy Mayor Tharp.
No report.
Councilmember Noble.
Just to reinstate about the trees, I know it's brought up that the droppings of these trees can be blown away, but you can't have someone there blowing these things away all the time, 24 hours a day. Serious consideration has to remove the trees, and of course, when we do remove a tree, we replace a tree. And there's nothing wrong with placing a tree with a young, new, vibrant tree and getting rid of a monster.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugo.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Diaz.
I just wanted to congratulate once again, I know we did it at the top of the show, the President Volunteer Service Awards recipients, 8,809 hours. That equates to 367 days. So just thank you to not just those that receive the awards, but we have so many in our community that volunteer for various causes, and that's what makes our community greater. So thank you to anyone who takes any of their time to volunteer for whatever your cause might be or whatever you stand for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bousquet.
Well said, Councilwoman Diaz. No, I have nothing.
For the mayor's report, I have a few things I want to talk about. First of all, I had the opportunity to do a city tour with some of our leadership, and I'm very impressed with the way that we have changed since I've been up here on the dais. I commend the work that has been done, and I think we're in a great place to continue to grow the city. PBSO has done an excellent job. Some of the new safety measures that you guys have implemented, which I'm not going to speak about in details, but I'm very excited about some of those. So tell Captain Moore that I'm very happy about some of the things that he showed me. So very, very impressed by some of that. There are three things that I would like to bring up for discussion at the next meeting. One is the use of the city seal during election times. We have said that we don't allow it, but when people do it, there's no reprimand. So I want to bring up the discussion of if you use the city seal, then what happens? And then I also want to bring up the use of the city coins. The city coins is something that I have requested our staff. It's a tradition in the military that when you go above and beyond, you get awarded a coin. Coins are not to be given out at large or in large bulk. It has to be something that means something. They went above and beyond their normal duties. So I want to revisit that. I want to see if we can implement a process and a method for giving those coins out. And we should sort of keep some sort of record mechanism for who we've awarding these coins to, not just handing them out like candy. So that's something I want to bring up. And then the other thing, and this is just a thought, and that's why I'm bringing it up for discussion, is televising the meetings. I think a lot of people out there in the community are wanting to see the meetings live. I know that other municipalities already provide that to their residents, and I want to explore the opportunity, and maybe this item doesn't have to be the next meeting. Maybe we can give our staff some time to figure out the mechanism. But at some point, I would like to bring that up for discussion. It's not a pressing item, just an item that I want to at least get feedback from the council. That concludes the mayor's report.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Meeting's adjourned.